When you're looking for a good piece of lost media that you can lose yourself in the search for, this first one of the video hits all the points you want. Not to mention, it's related to Nickelodeon, which in my opinion is one of the best categories for lost media. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you might remember the Oswald-Ozzy Osbourne crossover that seemed to exist for no reason. This was some kind of commercial or advertisement that used Oswald clips with audio from the Osbournes TV show dubbed over the characters. The only record we had of its existence was several Reddit threads that all recalled seeing it on TV, until eventually, the creator of Oswald confirmed it was real and was played at a Nickelodeon event. Unfortunately, this one is still a mystery, as no visuals have resurfaced and we're unsure at which event it was played at. But this is not the only strange Nick crossover that exists, because another thread from August 2022 showed up, and has yet to be found to any extent. Papa Locomotion made a thread where he recollects a promo from the late 2000s, and has been trying to reunite with it ever since. The post goes on to describe the promo. It begins with Dora and Boots, possibly singing and dancing as they are known to do. Then, out of seemingly nowhere, George Lopez interrupts them to ask where he is. Dora answers with, "You're on Nick Jr., to which George responds, "Nick Jr., I'm supposed to be on Nick at Night." Afterwards, the duo helps Lopez find his way and reveals that the whole thing was just a promo for his self-titled ABC sitcom that Nick at Night was airing in reruns at the time. Yes, there exists a crossover between Dora the Explorer and George Lopez that is completely lost, and probably hasn't been seen since the late 2000s. Though apparently, the internet has been aware of this crossover for quite a while, as a lot of Reddit posts were made earlier in 2022 that mention its existence, with the earliest being from 2018, though the promo is falsely remembered as an actual episode. This thread is where I first found the topic, and there was some good discussion about where it aired, like on Nickelodeon or Nick at Night, with some debate about whether or not it made an appearance on Nick Jr. at all. Papa Locomotion also mentioned having looked through commercial break compilations from the time period on YouTube and the Internet Archive, but didn't find anything related to this crossover. I also remember reading some comments about it in the original crossover video from Seeker of the Lost, and it's been mentioned on Twitter as well. This one seems to be remembered by way more people than the Oswald one, so it's a little surprising that no one has come across it yet. Mock-up screenshots were also attached to the post, and based on the recollection, it seems like George Lopez gets placed into Dora's world, rather than Dora showing up on George's show. One of the most difficult aspects of searching for lost commercials and promos is that their unearthing is limited to recordings that have been saved over the years. But considering how many people remember this one, and the fact that it seemed to air regularly on TV, it shouldn't be too hard to find, compared to the Oswald one, which was probably only aired once or twice and never shown again. Spreading awareness of this topic is probably one of, if not the only way, it's going to get found. Remember how popular those online virtual pet games were in the mid-2000s? For some reason, this seemed to be one of the most popular eras for them, and if you were like me, Webkinz was the icon of the genre. But there were a lot of other competitors too, like Neopets, and a handful of knockoffs that have fallen into obscurity. But before all of that, Nintendo of all companies tried their hand at creating a game like this, in what might be one of, if not the earliest online virtual pet games that ever existed. I'm really surprised I had never heard about this topic before reading about it in the forums, as there's already a pretty extensive collection and community surrounding lost Nintendo Flash games. But this thread by Juxtaposition from late 2022 talks about a lost Yoshi Flash game that was released to celebrate Yoshi's story, and says, "It was a browser game from 1998 to 2001, where you would take care of a baby Yoshi. You had to have an insider account to play. You had to check in on him every day." Followed by a huge list of links that related to content from the game. The first several were ones that Nintendo had on their website, from their main page, the Insider account pages, and the Yoshi Story site. But unfortunately, they were not saved correctly, and all of the links either redirect to Nintendo's current website or 404. It's cool that we have the URLs, but since they don't operate correctly, there's nothing we can gather from them. However, what's really useful to have been saved is a link to an Angelfire fan site that documents other users' Yoshis. I'm always amazed that there seems to exist one or two of these still operating for all of Nintendo's oldest content. The site describes itself as a collection page for fellow Yoshi fans to display their pets and tell everyone what their score was. While there are only a couple Yoshis that were ever added to this page, these entries give us a great idea of some of the game's mechanics. Similar to other online pet games, there were a variety of stats connected to the Yoshis, including age, date, time, color, a description, and usual mood. These are archived in the profiles that users submitted to the website. The GIFs that are included in this page were also taken from the game itself, though some of the profiles also list an erased date, so perhaps the game had a statistic for when a Yoshi is deleted. Other than these graphics, there's no other gameplay available, and it's not entirely clear how the game worked or what it even looked like. To even play the game, you needed to have an Insider account on Nintendo's website, so it was locked behind that and wasn't available to play just by going to their site, unlike many of the other Flash games Nintendo released. GameSpot even wrote an article about it back in 2000, which mentions most of the same information from the fan site, but also says players can compete to get the top Yoshis. One of the Yoshis from the owner of the fan site mentions that one of their erased Yoshis made it to rank 59 by eating a lot of melons. There were also a couple of Reddit threads that mentioned the game's existence that were linked here, but again, they didn't gain any interest. If there's any way to recover more content from this piece of Nintendo lost media, the game sounds like it would be worth the effort to archive. I don't know what it is about spooky lost media or content that's intended to be scary, but there's something about it that draws people in. I'll admit, when I first started researching lost media, like cartoon pilots, the scary stuff is what I went out of my way to avoid. But nowadays, I find myself looking more into topics like these, and the story behind this next one is something I couldn't say no to. In the unidentified media section on the Lost Media Wiki forums, there's a post that was made on February 1st of 2023 that details a jump scare from the 2000s. Now, jump scares aren't anything new when it comes to lost media, but it's the bizarre and somewhat scary details surrounding this one that make it really stand out to me. The post goes on to explain they and their mother were watching reruns of an old show on the TV Land channel late at night, when, during a mostly normal commercial break, there was an ad that came on. It displayed scenery images like lakes, rivers, mountains, etc. I believe they were birds singing as well, and sound effects like the sound of water. Just ambience, mostly, but at the end, a woman popped up on the screen and, from my memory, her hair was standing on end, like in a cartoon, and she let out this ear-piercing scream and the ad ended, and went back to normal commercials. There was never any context or explanation, and it never aired again. This was my first experience with a jump scare, and it was traumatizing. I have done pretty heavy research into it and dug as deeply as I feel possible. The thread goes on to discuss some of the possibilities about what this could be, though the obvious car jump scare and similar ads that copied that style were ruled out. This was apparently something different. CMK also mentioned that they weren't sure if this was a legit ad or some sort of hack, but further in the thread, Ko did make a good point. If this jump scare was indeed a legit ad, it would be possible to find, as sometimes TV Land would showcase old ads on the channel. So maybe it could have been a really old one that no one else even knows exists. CMK did mention they searched through compilations on YouTube, but didn't find anything that resembled the one they saw. So if it does exist, then it's probably not online yet. Personally, I really like the story behind its scariness, how it just popped up in the middle of the night on a channel no one would expect. But that's when it hit me that maybe this isn't all that it seems to be. While I am someone who likes to believe something is real before believing it's fake, there have been a lot of times on the forums where people point out the holes in topics that seem like they could be made up. And with this one, I couldn't help but realize this user is a new user of the site, has only posted about this topic, and every detail about it fits into that overused, late at night, traumatized me, never to be seen again style. In my post from the thread, I also mentioned that searching for a lost commercial like this reminds me of the Subway Perfection ad, and in some ways, you could make a point that this jump scare might have been a local troll that someone simply paid to have on TV for a night. But then you could also argue that the Subway Perfection ad had a lot more evidence and credibility behind the story compared to this single post on the forums. There's not really any way to get an exact answer about its legitimacy from this alone, so either searching for more jump scares, TV Land commercial breaks, or maybe coming across more people that can remember it will help lead to a conclusion or even getting it found. How about we talk about a little physical lost media? I guess it wouldn't really be an LSSQ lost media video without some topic relating to that, and actually, this one was first brought to my attention a while ago. It reminds me a lot of the 24 karat gold Game Boy Advance mystery, which ended up leading to a couple units from that promotion resurfacing. However, as for this golden video game prize, none of the winners or photos of the item have been found in almost 20 years. Around a year ago, a thread showed up called 2005 Psychonauts Golden Disc Prize Giveaway, posted by T-Pose Above Nicktoons. The post explains a contest that was held in the mid-2000s for the release of the first Psychonauts game, and follows a really similar style to those golden Game Boy consoles I mentioned before. The post says, "In 2005 for the release of Psychonauts, they did a Willy Wonka type thing, where if somebody found the golden disc, there would be rewards and all that. However, no images of the disc exist, and there are no sources or evidence to back up who won, or if anyone ever did. If anyone knows any information about this, that would be swell." At the same time that this thread was made, Beelzeboba made a Reddit post also asking if anyone had found one of the golden discs, and provided an image of the contest that was placed onto game boxes to advertise it. Surprisingly, a Google search for this contest pulls up quite a few different articles that were written around the same time as the game released, and mention the contest as part of a larger, multi-million-dollar advertising package. And through some further research into the old community, Beelzeboba was also able to uncover information from old forums that claim a total of 15 discs were made for the contest. This is a pretty useful piece of information to have found, because now we have a number to work with in regards to how difficult one disc would be to find. Apparently, they were distributed to Walmart, Best Buy, and EB Games, but another claim was made that Toys R Us ended up with some too, so we're looking at between 15 and 20. But as of these posts from March 2022, there still hasn't been any photos of the golden discs to resurface, and we don't know who any of the owners are. Boba and T-Pose both ended the thread by claiming they had been able to reach out to PR staff that helped with the event, but nothing ever came from these leads. One contact was even going to try and find a picture of the disc, which would have been huge for the search, but it seems as though they never did. This contact was also unsure who the actual winner of the prize was, because interestingly, it was conducted by an outside agency. But in this case, the $5,000 winner isn't really important because all they won was money. The disc is really what we're after. I'm surprised this topic didn't really gain any more attention, and the leads seem to dissolve pretty quickly. Maybe someone watching this video knows someone that has a golden disc and can get a picture online for us. I'd love to see one myself. Lost commercials are one of those areas of content that I'm becoming more interested in with the more topics that people tell me about. I usually won't go out of my way to find a lost commercial, but sometimes reading an interesting post that someone sends to me is enough to get me looking into it. Even though this topic hasn't become widely popular yet, I've seen it mentioned in a few different places from commercial enthusiasts, and its content sounds bizarre enough to search for. The Random Man made a thread in January 2023 called Lost Burger King Commercial, and recalls an animated commercial that's resurfaced in their mind that they've been thinking about for weeks. According to their details, its plot involved the mascot of Burger King throwing burgers around while doing this dance where he jumps backward with his hands on both ends of his waist, standing on a rectangular white box in front of a green screen with a camera behind it in a corner. A narrator's voice enters the scene and has a conversation back and forth with the mascot. Then, the narrator says something about the mascot's mess he's making, but how delicious the burgers look. There's another detail about how the mascot changes, but it's always something completely random. I'm guessing this refers to his appearance, though it's not made clear. The Random Man wasn't sure when the commercial was made originally, believing it was sometime between 2012 and 2019, but narrows it down to 2015 or 2016, as the design of the 2015 Burger King mascot is exactly how he appeared in the commercial. It was also pointed out that the animation was 2D, and the Burger King mascot may have been referred to as Burgie by the narrator. I can't recall ever seeing a commercial that sounds similar to this, and there isn't any other information online about it, besides Reddit posts that Random Man made themselves. Though apparently they had been trying to get more attention to the search, as some of the latest posts in the thread are as recent as February 2023. T-Pose Above Nicktoons also commented that they recall seeing it, likely on Nickelodeon or Nicktoons, as that's what they were watching at the time. Random Man claims they had seen it on Fox 56 during a rerun of The Simpsons. Since this is a Burger King commercial, I wouldn't be surprised to hear it aired on a variety of different networks. It probably wouldn't be unreasonable to guess that this one could even be online already, in a commercial compilation that no one has come across yet, especially in a 2D animated style. It's also not uncommon to find this kind of material in animation reels posted by people who compile their work into a portfolio. I wish there were some clearer details about what the animation style looked like. It might make it a little easier to identify, but with some more eyes on the search, there's a good chance it could be found. You guys know how much I like existence unconfirmed lost media, and the search that's required to prove if it's real or not. A lot of these kinds of topics end up on the forums, but in some cases, the posts don't provide enough details to reach a conclusion, or the research doesn't end up matching the original claim, leading to the result that the topic is likely fake. But on the other hand, being able to prove that something isn't real feels like a goal in itself, and this topic definitely caught my attention for the fact that if it does exist, it will be another lost video game Easter egg that hasn't been documented in close to 20 years. This thread is called Lost PlayStation 2 Skull Error Screen and was posted in December 2022, so the topic isn't even that old. It's another post from T-Pose Above Nicktoons, who goes on to describe a memory from their childhood that they remembered but couldn't find any documentation of, apparently having a connection to the Futurama PS2 game. She goes on to explain her encounter with this piece of lost media, and says one day while her brother was playing the game, he comes running to me saying that he tried playing the game but was greeted by a skull, weird noises, and some text, which scared him and that he shut off the console. He didn't play the game for some time after that, but I did, and I saw the same error screen, and I finally knew what he was talking about, though I wasn't afraid of it and assumed it was just an error. According to this recollection, there was some kind of scary screen with a skull that was triggered with an unknown method, and that set the thread in motion to try and figure out what the screen could be, and how to trigger it. There were two different theories that were discussed regarding the screen's origin. One was that the error screen was part of the Futurama game itself, and the other is that it was connected to the PS2 console. A few ideas were brought up, like the screen being the result of the disc not being read, or a corrupted memory card, but T-Pose claims none of the suggestions were what they remembered. It also complicates things a little more, that no consensus was reached as to the skull's appearance. Some users believed if it was a realistic skull, it may have been connected to the console, whereas a more cartoony one was assumed to be connected to the game. Though if it was from Futurama, there is no information about the screen from places like the cutting room floor, which is where you'd expect to find it if it actually existed. After a few more suggestions for where it came from, including a pretty spooky screen that appears when you have a mod chip in your console, there was one post by SadLad84 only a couple weeks after the thread was started that really caught my attention. It was a YouTube video showing an error screen that shows up when you open the PS2's disc tray while a game is running. It's not a perfect match to the recollection, but it's very accurate, and the most accurate yet. I was convinced this had to have been the error screen, especially since it's likely not many people had come across this before. But apparently, that wasn't it either. As smaller details are added to the recollection, it becomes harder to find a perfect match, and because of that, the thread pretty much ends up fizzling out, with Crembelievable assuming that T-Pose is simply misremembering, and the disc tray error must be it. I can't believe there exists any more that would be a closer match, and it makes you wonder just how many error screens with skulls really exist. But I would gladly be wrong if there does exist another one that's more obscure than any of these mentioned in the thread. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other Lost Media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.